When I started web development many years ago, I had no idea how to lay out the content for my page. I didn't know where the header content was supposed to go. I didn't know where the footer content or the links. But I mean, seriously, header content, headers at the top, right? And footers at the bottom with the links somewhere in the middle. A lot of developers today still struggle though on a simple web page layout. And what I want to do in this video is I want to offer a 3-columned approach with a header, a navbar, and a footer. Now, if you're interested in that, we're going to do this quickly. And I need you to stay with me because it's going to go fast. Are you ready? Let's do this. Okay, with Atom already open, you'll notice here that I have a website layout folder. I have a CSS folder, an index.html, and inside my CSS, I have a master.css. If you need to pause the video to add those changes, please do that now. Otherwise, go ahead and type at the top of your page, HTML. We'll let Atom do all the content creation for us. We'll go in here, we'll add our link, which is going to reference our style sheet, and it already points to our master CSS. We'll take off this 1 backslash for right now. We'll save it. Then we're going to come down to our main content in our body. We're going to add a header, hit enter, and on our header, we're going to add a class. We're going to call it header. Inside of our header, we'll have an H1, and we're going to say my website. Underneath that, we'll just add a paragraph, and we'll say this page will resize to the browser window. It is responsive. Okay. Now, you may want to change your header later and put an actual image in here, but for now, this is what we have. Underneath our header, we're going to create a div, and we're going to take out the class, and for this one, we're going to say the ID equals container. Under the container, we're going to create a nav element, and the nav element will have a class. We'll call that class top nav. And underneath that, we're going to create 3 links. The first one's going to be an anchor. We'll leave it as a $, but we'll call the first one about me. We'll create a second one, second anchor tag. And this anchor will be history. Our third anchor tag is going to say fun facts. If I can type. There we go. After our nav, we're going to go down. We're going to hit enter a couple times. And this is going to represent the main row that will hold our 3 columns. So we're going to click div, hit enter. And for the class, we're going to call this row. Now, each of these elements, you're going to notice that I have a class called top nav, a class called header, an ID called container. We're going to go into our CSS in a moment and alter that so that these styles take effect. But for now, go ahead inside your nav. We're going to create go ahead inside your div here and create another nav. And this nav, we're going to give a class. Well, phooey, the thing is trying to help me too much. Class, and we're going to call this column, and that's side. And inside of that, we're going to say H2. We'll call this our site navigation. Now I'm calling it site navigation. You could put any number of things you want in here, but this is to be modified later with other nav links. All right, so we have our nav section, and we have a H2, and we have a paragraph. All right, so underneath that, we're still in our div for the div called row. We're going to create a main content section, and this is with the main tag. We'll give this a class of column and middle. We'll create a header here. We'll call this our main content. And underneath this, we're going to use some lorem ipsum. You guys have seen me do this in class. So just copy and paste from any lorem ipsum generator and paste it into your paragraph there. Okay, so we have our main, and let's go ahead and just copy that again. Go to the end and paste it in. So we got 2 paragraphs for our main content. That'll kind of fill up the page. Then we have our closing tag for the main, and we're now going to create an aside. So we hit aside, aside, hit enter. Okay, now your aside is going to be content that's going to appear over on the right-hand side of your page. So we'll create another H2 in here, and we'll say this is our side content. And underneath that, we'll create another paragraph. And to simplify things, I'm just going to copy this lorem ipsum text and just paste it right there. So far, with all the content we have, this may get confusing. And what I like to do sometimes is mark up the closing divs so that I can see where things are at. So I'm just going to put a comment right here. And this div matches right here at this area, div row. So I'm just going to say end of row. And then this div matches the container. So I'm going to create another content comment. I'm going to say end of container. And this just helps me to kind of visualize on the HTML, and it's probably be useful for you guys too. Now at the bottom, we want to add our footer. So we'll just type footer. And inside of that, let's see here. I'm going to type ampersand copy. This is your HTML entity for the copyright symbol. Then I'm going to type 2021 dash my name, Michael Rogers. Okay. So we have a very basic layout of our site right now. So if I already got it opened over here in this other window, if I save it and refresh, you see just very basic flow of content. Not a lot as far as layout, right? Now we're going to go ahead and jump into the CSS. The CSS portion of this is going to actually break this out into the style that we want. So go to your CSS. Over here, it's called master. Double click on that, open it. And the first thing that we're going to do for our CSS is we're going to go ahead and declare a different font, because I really don't care for the serif fonts, the Times Roman fonts. So I'm going to say body, curly bracket, and font family. I'll say Tahoma, comma Verdana, Helvetica, Arial, and then of course sans serif at the end. Again, if you're confused about what sans serif is, the serif is the little hook that you see in your Times Roman content. So if you look at the top there, it says my website. The top of the letter M has that little hook at the top. A sans serif font is without the hook. Okay, and I don't really care for the hooks on some of these fonts. All right, so I've got my body established. We'll save that. We'll refresh the page. You can see now it doesn't have the Times Roman font anymore. So let's go ahead and talk about styling this out. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to specify the selector for all, and I'm going to say box sizing. I'm going to say border box. We'll save that. And let's do this. Let's put this above our body. There we go. And in our body, we're going to add one other style declaration, and we'll just say a margin of 0. And now we're going to work on the header. So we already have a header tag. If you remember over here, it's specified as header, but we also have the class. I'm going to refer to the class and say header. Start typing out my content. So I've got my background color. Let's see, my background color for the header could be a gray. It could be anything. I'm just gonna say gray because it's just easy. And then for the padding, I'm gonna give my padding for this as 20 px. And text align, we'll make it center. All right, we'll save that, refresh it. There we've got our header set up. By the way, most of this content is being retrieved from the W3 Schools site. There is a web template there, and this template is based on that. I believe in giving credit where credit is due. There are some minor modifications that they have in their HTML and their CSS that I'm changing on my side because we're using the newer tag elements. All right, so now we're going to create, if we go back and look at our index, now we need to establish the navigation, the top nav inside of the container. So I'm going to say my top nav, and we're going to say overflow is hidden. Say that our background color, let's just do black. Okay, say black. And if we save that and refresh it, now we have this in black. Okay. Let's go ahead and address our links. So we're going to say top nav again, the anchor tag, and we're going to float this content to the left. We're going to give it a display of block. We're going to set the color of the font. I'm going to set it to white. We're going to do the text align here to center. And we're going to do the padding to 14px, 16px. We'll save it, come back over here and refresh it. And now we've got our navigation bar there at the top. Okay, so the other thing I want to do though to this, I really don't like the underline text for my navs. So I'm going to take that out. Remember, you do this with the text decoration property, and we're just going to say none. We'll save it, refresh, and now the text decoration is gone. We can go ahead and add one other thing here, and that's to give it a bit of action. So we're going to say our top nav again, our anchor, and we're going to use the pseudo class hover. And for this, we will change the background color to let's see, that. And we'll set the color to gray. And if we refresh and hover, we get this change that occurs as we hover over it. Okay, so we got so far the navigation, we got the header, we've altered a lot of the links there. So let's go ahead and look at some other items. This is the main part, which is the column. Now we specified a column here. We got a column side, column middle, and column side. So let's go ahead and take a look and do our first column. So we're going to say, use the column class that we created, dot side, and we're going to set the width to 25%. Okay, 25%. Let's go down, do another one. We're going to say the column middle, and we'll set the width to this to 50%. Instead of setting it as a exact number, we're setting it as a percentage. And what this gives us is the flexibility. As we size and stretch the browser, the page will slide with us. Okay. Now we need to do a couple of things here. We need to address the content on the page, clearing the floats for the columns. So we're going to specify the row class with a pseudo class of after, and we're going to specify content to be blank. We'll say display is table, and we're going to clear both. You'll understand that in a moment, what that does. Now I want to go ahead and specify my footer. So I've got a footer here. And here I'm just going ahead and using the tag name instead of the class name. So I'm going to say my padding right is 20px. The overflow is hidden. And the background color for our footer, I'm going to make it the same as our header. So I'm just going to say black. Okay, we'll save that. Come over here and refresh. And there we go. Now, you'll notice that all of our text is gone, right? That doesn't help us very much. So we're going to come back in here and we're going to say color is white. Refresh that, and that looks a little bit better. But there's a problem here. I don't really like the layout. So we're going to go ahead and put a paragraph in, and we're going to wrap that paragraph around that text we had a moment ago. So we're copying, pasting that inside of our paragraph. We're saving it. Come up and refresh again. There, it gives us a little bit better look and feel. We're going to go back to our master CSS, and we'll take out that padding there. We'll say footer, paragraph. So we're going to come in here. We're going to type padding. We'll type 10px. We'll save it. Come over here and refresh. And now we got a little bit of a padding there around our content. Okay, so that is our footer. Let's see, what else do we need to do here? We still haven't got our content to lay out in the appropriate dimensions, right? So what we need to do is we need to set up our media query. So we're going to type media, and we're going to say it's specified for a screen. And we're going to give the max width as 600px. And we'll come down here and we'll specify our column dot side, comma, column dot middle, middle, and then we're going to specify our width here of 100%. We'll save it and refresh. Okay, so I kind of made a silly error here. We need to go ahead and make sure our dots on our classes are right here next to each other. We're going to pull these back in. And you know, I missed something. I forgot. We need to make sure that we are floating our columns to the right dimensions. So totally skipped right past this. You have to float everything, and we want to float it to the left. And then we want to set the width of our float to 25%. So we're going to save it and refresh. And if we come up and do this again, you'll see that now the content is actually floated to the right dimensions. Okay. With that being said, if we take this content and stretch it out a little bit, you'll see that it now actually has the right dimensions inside of it, your borders and so forth. And if you squish it in, of course, it flexes and changes size and so forth. Now, there's a couple other things that we could do here. One of them is add an internal padding on the right side. We could say a 5px. And if we do that, it will give us a little bit you'll see it gives it spaces right there at the 5px. It doesn't quite connect the lines. So we could change this up to say 25 and save it. And now you see that the border between the layouts is wider. The same thing is we can say now a padding on the left. Let's just do a 10px on the left. Now what that's going to do is some of these it's going to actually space it on the left a little bit. So if we refresh it, you'll see it moved it over here and over on that side. So I'm going to bring it back down here to 15, save it, refresh, and now we got this clean look all around. Okay, that is a very basic layout in a nutshell. There's a lot more you can do with this, but hopefully for those of you who are preparing your projects right now for class, this will get you started and you can run with this and go forward with it. All right, catch y'all later.